I'm on a few different shows of Football Guys. Each one of those shows, Sunday Morning Live, it's all through community. It starts and sits advice. It's helping people. I play in our Football Guys Bowl, which last year had 5,004 teams. Anything and everything I do in fantasy football now, I do through the lens of community. It's funny to say Matthew Stafford in redraft, he's not going away, folks, and he's going like as 15th, 16th quarterback off the board.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Under the Hoodie. I'm Scott Hoyt, host of Under the Hoodie and founder of Fantasy Sports Strategies, which also produces this show. So before I introduce today's guest, I need to add a little context. In the past, when we do this show, the DNA of Under the Hoodie is that we try and bring you voices shaping this industry, the future of this industry. Whether it's fantasy sports or it's the gambling landscape or people simply strengthening our communities, this is where these conversations happen. And today's episode is an absolute perfect fit for what we do because we're joined by someone who's deeply embedded in the fabric of this industry, has a real pulse of what's happening across our communities. And when it comes to a trusted, respected voices, this is a name you all know. He's the community ambassador for Football Guys, which, by the way, is my go-to source and a platform that's helped define how serious players approach fantasy football. Please welcome Joey Wright. Joey, welcome.
What an introduction. Definitely will be the best part of the show was your beautiful introduction. Because I don't know what tomfoolery is going to follow this. No, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here with you. I feel weird because last summer we saw each other so much, and it's been a bit since I saw you back in February, but It feels like I should see you once a month for how much we run into each other.
I know it's been kind of a strange happening, but it's been great. As you know, I probably do stalk you guys because I'm on Football Guys all of the time. And I'm one of your, if not your biggest fan. I've been using Football Guys for many years, and you guys got icons in your whole portfolio. The guys like Bob Harris and Sigmund and Joe and yourself. These are icons.
Oh, I don't get included with those guys. Like every day, and I text this to Bob at least once a month, where I'm like, I still haven't got over the fact that I get to work with you every day.
Yeah,
because it's so cool. Like you can learn so much from those guys. There's such a wealth of knowledge, and they're so eager to give that knowledge up. So yeah,
and they're just great down to earth guys too.
Mm-hmm.
And you can chop it up with them at any time. Hey, so Joey, what I want to do is what we always do at this show is we kind of try to look back before we look forward. And I don't know if you've ever heard that phrase that sometimes the roads, I love this saying. Sometimes the road's not always the one you choose. It's or the one that's most traveled. So I'd like for you to kind of take me back and tell me a little bit about who is Joey Wright and how did you get here?
Oh man, how much time do I have? No, I'm kidding.
You got as much time as you want.
I am just a kid from Cape Canaveral, Florida, born to a single mom. Had a pretty great upbringing, had a wonderful grandfather, grandmother that spent a lot of time with, but I always kind of shout out my grandfather because he introduced me to two of my biggest loves through my life, other than my wife and my kids. He introduced me to sports and to movies. And if you look behind me, I have over 1,500 films. I know I've got kind of a slender profile right now, which I don't get to say that very often. I have a slender profile, but here we are. 1,500 films behind me. I'm a huge cinema buff, but sports. He took me to college basketball games as a kid, and I got to be a ball boy for the Florida Tech Panthers, which really kind of ingrained me into loving sports. Met some other ball boys. We would trade baseball cards. So then I started looking at the back of cards to get stats. So everything was kind of leading breadcrumbs up to getting me into the industry. And I would say I discovered fantasy football. Always an NFL fan. I was a Buccaneers fan, Florida Gator fan. But like 2009, I discovered fantasy football, and it's the only thing I really got intoxicated on. Like just absolutely ingrained into it. Absolutely loved it to a point where I was playing in friend leagues and family leagues and having a great time, but I was needing more. And then I got really sick in 2020. A lot of people were home because of the pandemic around that time. I got really sick. I had a really bad gallbladder infection, and then had to get double hernia repair. And I was in bed a lot in 2020. And that's kind of when I found the fantasy football community on Twitter. Funny enough to say you found a community on Twitter, but there it was. And just kind of started talking to some of the people. I think Jay Felicio might have been the first person I ever met in the community. Taking one step back, my job before this was a water technician, which let me drive around a lot. And through that, I discovered the CBS Fantasy Sports, the Fantasy Football Today podcast with Dave Richard, Heath Cummings, Adam Azer, and Jamie Eisenberg. And those guys became like my Bible driving around every week. I love those guys. Been very fortunate now that I've kind of become friends with it. I'll say all four of them. They won't ever admit that, but they love me. And Heath was just giving me crap this morning about something. And no, so I found the community. Jay Felicio was the first person I met, brought me on a show first. And then I just started guesting and talking to people. And eventually a company, Rasball, I always give them the first shout out, played in their big community bowl. They brought me on board first. They said, we think you've got a good sense of humor. You're really funny. It seems like you're really enjoying this. Do you want to do our waiver wire article? And I was like, sure, because I used to be a film critic. And so I did that for a season. And leading into that season, I went to Canton for the first time for the Fantasy Ball Expo, because a lot of people were saying, hey, we're going to this expo thing. And I'm like, well, I've been stuck inside for almost a year and a half now. I kind of want to get out and talk to some people and see people again. And so went and met all these internet people that I've talked to, and it was great. I met a lot of cool people. I met Dave Richard for the first time, went to watch the Kings Classic draft. But I met three other guys, Simon Grunewald, J.O. Garofalo, and Josh Fuster, along with Jay Felicio, who were all at this company, Front Yard Fantasy. And at Front Yard Fantasy, I guested with them once, and I was like, man, what you guys do is really cool. I would love to be a part of it one day. A little while later, I joined with them over there. And my first week of the company, I asked JL, hey, JL, do you mind if I go to a park and like record like a start and sit video? And I had no idea what I was getting myself into. Took my best friend out with the camera, and we created start, sits, and salutations there on the spot. It was a start and sit series where I would go out into nature. I would talk to animals. I would go to the zoo. I would have a cooking show. I just had made up this character that had a funny voice and gave start sit advice. It was a little different.
They say you shouldn't feed birds bread, rice, or firecrackers because they might explode. Use corn instead. If you want to see a real explosion this week, play Taylor Heineke against Kansas City Chiefs.
And I remember the advice that I was given about if I ever want to do this as a job. Dave Richard from CBS told me, find your differentiator. Yeah. The first episode of Starts and Citations that came out, I sent it to him to see what he would think. And he goes, this is it. This is what's going to set you apart. And while that was a fun thing to do, a fun show, I didn't really feel like I saw it as a career until I went to Expo and I did it. And I started like really ingraining myself in the community and just like fostering the community. It wasn't long later. Joe Bryant, I had met Joe before, but he approached me about possibly joining Footballguys, and some good friends, Dave Kluge, Alfredo Brown, Jeff Bell, that were already at Footballguys, kind of grabbed me by the collar, said, you're coming with us. And I joined Footballguys. And I did some roundtable articles for a while. I really enjoyed it. Just enjoyed the culture there. I enjoyed the Footballguys mission, just being a friend to the fantasy football player, with a home league mentality. I just like, well, this is how I see the game. I want everyone to love fantasy football just as much as I have my whole life, or since 2009. And I was really unhappy in my day job, driving around, listening to podcasts only. It was only fun for so long. And I went to Joe, and he told me to go home and design my dream role for what I would want to do. Pitched him like 10 different things I could do at this job. Joe already had in mind what he wanted, and I was kind of fitting into those molds. So I think he knew that he wanted to bring me on, and started off like as like part-time, full-time. And then eventually I was full-time. And now it's like the doors have blown off. I plan the company retreat. I plan our Footballguys Bowl, which last year had 5,004 teams. Scott, you played in it last year. Anything and everything I do in fantasy football now, I do through the lens of community.
Yeah.
And I don't think I could do it another way. I always just try to take in that mindset of like, how do I show people how to have fun playing fantasy football? I'm on a few different shows of Football Guys. Each one of those shows, Sunday Morning Live, is all through community. It starts and sits advice. It's helping people. I do the Home League show with Kevin Murray. That's all about how to start a really fantasy football league that lasts and thrives. So yeah, I think I gave you the bio as well as I could have in under.
Yeah, so anybody who has followed you, and I've followed you a lot, is you have a very, very pretty diverse path to where you are today, and you've mentioned some of the highlights of that, and I think that's what and why I said in the very beginning why this show was so going to be so cool is because you are all about community. If anybody knows you, your brand persona is all about building community engagement. Was there any, and there's just kind of a random question, were there any key moments or pivots during this career that you just outlined that shaped your career that said, okay, that's a key moment for me?
That's a great question. That's a really great question. I don't want to make it all about myself, but I think joining Front Yard Fantasy was probably the thing that set me on the course the most in this industry, because it was a show, the game show, when we were doing it at 3:00 every day, and now they do the morning show at 9:00. I pop in there once or twice a week because I'm still part of Front Yard Fantasy. I love those guys. I will forever be grateful to them. A great leader in J.L. Garofalo, and then Simon Grunewald taught me how to host. But yeah, I think joining them, and then because I did start Sits and Salutations under that umbrella, but that showed me how to be on a show or be at a company that was all about the community mattering first overall. Listen, this fantasy football is a really fun game we play, and the analytics is super important. They got some great tools at Football Guys. If I was ever going to try to do that and that was my path, I would have failed on day one. I absolutely would have. And that's just the truth of it, honestly.
Hey, Joey, was there a specific time during all of this, working with the various entities that you did, was there a specific point in time where you realized that fantasy football, we all know the size of fantasy football and really the following that it has, and certainly maybe more importantly, the content around it, how it's evolved over the years. Was there some point that you said, wow, this could be more than just a passion for you? This is going to be my life.
Oh man. I think it honestly kind of came in baby steps. I got, I was always good to have people around me that would put me in check if I ever, not that I got a big head at points, but where I thought something might be coming that wasn't. There was a period with Starts and Salutations where I'm like, I want to make this a children's show. I want to talk to Nickelodeon. And I had good people around me that were like, let's discuss that before you think of doing that, and realized, oh no, that's not what I want to do. I think I might have answered your question there.
Yeah, you did. You did. I mean, and what really I'm trying to get to, and you've already talked about it quite a bit, is that you've worn a lot of different hats, and those experiences, I think, ultimately shape, even those hats are even outside of the fantasy football, probably shaped or influenced the way you analyze your game today. I would suspect that it does.
100%. I tell anyone that if you want to succeed, and this is true of anything in life, not just fantasy football, find out what you're good at doing in everyday life and apply it to your passions. And that's probably the best advice I've ever been given. Do the job that nobody else wants to do, but also whatever you're best at in life, find a way to apply that to your passion. For me, I applied it to fantasy football. I was a theater kid. And I knew that, I could do starts and sits, but if I go and I do a character and I have fun with it, make it like sketch comedy, that's going to get over a lot better. And so
find out. And I think one of the things that I've learned about in following you and watching you and just conversing with you, you're very knowledgeable. Your insights are very true to form. And I think you're just a genuine approach, meaning, you're going to get exactly what you get when you come to Joey Wright. And it's great. It's very refreshing. In this industry, I think that is what sets people apart from other folks in terms of this industry, because there's a lot of us. And so I applaud I applaud your approach. I applaud how you do it and your demeanor. So
Thank you.
let's talk about Football Guys, because as you know,
Okay.
it's probably my biggest go-to source that I've used for years. It's helped me a lot over the years. And like you, I've been playing fantasy football for a lot of years. Hate to admit it, but I'm part of the fax generation, which is I had to fax in my lineups on a Friday night. So anyway, well, that's for another story. So working
I
with Football Guys, I mean, the one thing about Football Guys is building trust in an audience in a space that's gotten so crowded. How has Football Guys done that? Because they've done a great job of building that trust. And I think you remember during the FSGA, I talked about brand and trust. And trust is such a key element in our industry. And you guys have done it well. How have you guys done that?
I mean, I think a lot of it starts with when you get an email from Football Guys, it's not from Football Guys. Who's it from?
What's
Joe
that?
Bryant.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
Joe was the face. Still is.
yeah, and exactly. And I think that personal touch to it, that every email comes from Joe Bryant. And I want to tell you that it's a whole team of 50 people and it's, AI that generates that email. No, Joe is writing it pretty much every week. And, Jake, his son Jake has picked up to do some as well. But that email that comes from Football Guys is always from Joe. It goes across his desk. He writes the majority of it. And I think
get it.
that personal touch,
Yeah.
if you email Joe, he will email you back.
Yeah.
He is truly a friend to the fantasy football player. That leadership that we see, lead by example. And we all use that as our example so that everything we do is what Joe would do, essentially.
And what do you think
I'll
about the
Joe.
platform itself? The platform, and your platform is easy to navigate. It's great stuff in there. What do you think? And there's a ton of them out there. What do you think separates Football Guys from the others? And I'm not saying that the others aren't good, but I do believe that Football Guys has a way of easily getting to information you need today.
Yeah, I think one thing that sets us apart is we do have a lot of different voices, and all very knowledgeable. I don't think anyone is there by accident. I think every hire is pretty intentional. As far as the navigation of the site, a lot of it just comes from, we do a lot of surveys with our readers and with our community to see like, hey, what's working for you guys? What's not working for you? The amount of feedback that we get to our customer service department and that feedback we act upon, it's insurmountable. I've worked at companies where the suggestion box is full, but none of those suggestions are ever put into action. I would say if you send something into Football Guys through our suggestion box, through any of our community platforms, or if it's just an email to our customer service department, we are addressing it in meetings. We're discussing it. So I would love to say it's all us, but a lot of it is our community that we've built up there.
So I'm going to talk a little bit more about your career, and then we're going to move into some fun stuff around fantasy football in general. But
okay.
What's the one? I always ask this for everybody. It's kind of sounds like a typical interview question, but it's not. But what's one challenge or setback that you had in your career that ended up being maybe a turning point for you?
Ooh, I love this question, and I'm not going to use names, but at my first FSGA, I've told the story privately. This might be the first time I told it publicly. No. I did actually put a thread together about this. I was walking through a ballroom and was excited to speak to someone, and they brushed me off with the phrase, "Oh, I didn't recognize who you were without the hat." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And luckily I had two people behind me, JL Garofalo and Simon Grunewald. They're like, "Okay, well, let's not dwell on this." And that stuck with me for a long time. And I wrote it on a Post-it note and I stuck it on my mirror. Nobody knows who you are without the hat. And I said, okay, well, I'm going to make sure people know who I am without the hat. And I took the hat off for a long time. And that's when I really started diving into community. So I took that really negative moment that person probably does not think about, has not thought about since the moment they said it, other than to poke a little jab. And, when I see them next, I'll be like, hey, look what I've done. You know who I am now without the hat.
That's cool.
And I'm looking forward to seeing them again. It'll be nice.
Yeah.
But, I could have taken that and just like, oh, that's it. I'm done. I'm a one-trick pony. But I said, no, I'm gonna become valuable. I'm gonna do this for a job. And at the time when it was said to me, I was only part-time. So it kind of motivated me. And I don't think that's a bad thing to use maybe little bumps in the road you get in life and just turn them into positives. And that's
I've always said that adversity brings out the best character in somebody. and how you handle that adversity can define who you are long term. And so it sounds like, again, I do want to talk to you a little bit about community ambassador. Is that the dream job that you came up with when Joe said, draft me a dream job, or was this one that Joe said, nope, you are community ambassador. We're going to go with that.
I told Joe I want a title, and I said, there's a lot of community managers. I don't want to manage anything, Joe. I want to be an ambassador. And so it kind of was a joke, and then it was like, well, that kind of works. And I've kind of run with it, and people kind of laugh at it. They're like, what is a community ambassador? And I'll say, honestly, for the first year, I asked myself that question every day. Like, what does a community ambassador do? And then as I've been with Football Guys, I created the Football Guys Bowl with a lot of help behind the scenes as well. I go to all the events, FSGA, you'll see me there talking with people, shaking hands and kissing babies. Like, in a way, yeah, I'm like kind of the mayor of Football Guys. Like, I've kind of put myself out there to be there, but I want to talk to all of our subscribers that we've had. That's why the expo is so important to me on Sunday. The events that we get to see the people that we've got these great relationships and friendships with is really important to see on Friday and Saturday. But Sunday, when we're seeing our subscribers, like, that is so, so valuable, because you get one-on-one conversation and just being the ambassador for the company, to be there and to take whatever feedback we're getting, or hear, any type of praise, to say, hey, listen, we're doing this one thing that's working. That's really important. And it killed me last year. My dog, we had just got a new dog, and I missed Sunday last year. I had to fly home Saturday night unexpectedly to get home, because we thought we were going to put my dog down, but she made it through. Very expensive surgery later. But
well, I mean, again, I think, we kind of laugh about the title, but it is absolutely perfect for you. I mean, it suits you to a T. And again, the branding name, he says, don't ever lose that. It's a great title, and I think it serves you and Football Guys well. Joe Bryant might be the face of Football Guys, but you are the community behind Football Guys.
Well,
that's how I view it.
I greatly appreciate that. I think recognizing that, of when I go to these events now, and knowing that I'm synonymous with Football Guys, that was something new to learn, to be like, okay, like, but I don't mind it, because I've been like the water technician before, and I'm like, I don't want to talk about the company I work for. I love talking about football. I love talking about the company I'm with. And I will say a lot of that comes with recognition, though, of like walking into a room and being really excited to be in that room, but also knowing when to step back and have time to myself at some of these big events. It's overwhelming a lot of the time. You walk into these rooms and you'll be talking to people that, you've seen on shows on TV, and, they're regular people just like you and I, but also you get overwhelmed when you go to Expo on Friday. Every Friday at the end of that night, I am ready to go back to my hotel room and lay down, just because it's, overload the conversations. And
yeah, but we all end up at the bar, the DoubleTree. You know that.
Well, that does happen. But no, I think it's important to recognize, any community manager that I've talked to, or community ambassadors for other companies, have said the same thing. Like, there comes a moment where you need to take a step back for an hour or two and just, take a little break. And every year when I go to Canton, I go get sushi at the same place on Saturday after the Kings Classic.
Oh,
that's me learning to take.
You need to invite me. I love sushi. I didn't know there was a sushi place in Canton.
I didn't say it was good.
Well, I don't really care. I guess at that point. Hey, again, one last question, career-wise, because I always ask this question, and I think it's based on our listeners, and they can always learn from people like yourself. What advice would you give to someone trying to break into this industry? Because as you know, there's a lot of people trying to break into this industry in some shape or form. Is there anything what advice would you give?
Yeah, I kind of already alluded to it earlier in the show, and I kind of want to hammer it home again, because I had a stepfather that liked to repeat stuff to me. And usually on the third time I heard what he was actually saying. So fine. And this was the advice that was given to me. Find your differentiator. Find what makes you different. Find what you're good at. Know what you're good at. Know what your strengths are, and apply those strengths. If you want to do fantasy football, apply them to fantasy football. If you're really good at graphics, approach companies about being a graphic designer. That can be your foot in the door to start doing content, if that's something you would like to do, or be a writer. If you're a really strong writer, but you don't want to necessarily put your analytics out there, look for editor jobs in the industry. I mean, sites are hiring people just to grammar check. because, you can use AI to grammar check, but to have a real feel to it, to know where words flow, still having an editor is always going to be a big part of any company. There's so many different skills that you can have in life. We have an accountant at Football Guys. It's really well known, but he's not. It's Jeff Bell. He's known as Jeff Bell, the fantasy football analyst. But Jeff, he does taxes every year for people, not at Football Guys, but So knowing where your skills are, applying them to a fantasy football company is so important if you want to succeed in the industry. Because here to tell you, there are few JJ Zacharyasons and Matt Harmons. I love both of those guys. They are fantastic, and they are absolute pros at what they do. And there's only so many spots for pros like that.
Yeah, that's great advice. That's great advice. So thank you for sharing that. Let's have some fun. Let's talk a little bit about fantasy football if we can. Not that this hasn't been fun. It's been very knowledgeable, very entertaining.
I love that.
I know. So again, we're and even though this recording won't drop for a week or so, and the draft will be over, the NFL draft to me is as entertaining and fun and engaging as the opening weekend of the NFL season when I go to Vegas and watch that every year. I love the NFL draft. And so this week is really, everybody's talking about the draft, and this is the week where more lies are actually covered up and then revealed. And so, but I'm going to talk about the fantasy football in general. As we head into this season coming up, is there a macro trend in fantasy football you think people may be either missing this year or misunderstanding?
I think the fact of going into a draft with a strategy, I think if that's your, I need to stick to this, you should always be water when you're going into a draft. Any set strategy that doesn't have some fluidity to it, I think is probably bad advice. You could be in a room with 11 people you don't know. Different things are going to happen if you go into 15 rooms just like that. So I would say just be fluid and don't lean into one specific thing. Like myself, this was a big learning lesson for me the last, I would say, 2 years. I was I am not taking a quarterback until the double-digit rounds. Like clockwork, I would just be stubborn and not do it sometimes. I've adapted that philosophy now where I'm like, I will only take a quarterback now if the value is right, which is the right philosophy to have. Any player at good value is a good player to draft. I would let great quarterbacks go just because I'm like, it's not the double-digit rounds yet. So that's a good example of me just being too stubborn, sticking with one strategy because I was used to it and not being fluid enough. Now I'm a lot more fluid, and my teams finish like maybe 5th or 6th instead of last, which is good.
So speaking of positions, is there a metric or a signal that you personally lean on when you look at evaluating, players and giving that advice out?
What do you mean by metric? Like, is there?
So it is. Exactly. I mean, so let's say we're in a PPR league. Is volume important? Is that a metric that you look at? Is what is the what's the quarterback situation? Are there metrics like that you look at to say, wait a minute, this impacts this player A or this player B?
Yeah, I think volume is key to that. And so but I will bring balance to my team where I'll use wide receiver as a position. If I've got a good volume wide receiver, like I think Devonta Smith is going to be this year for the Eagles, no matter what happens with AJ Brown, I think Devonta Smith's going to kind of get back to getting a lot of targets like we're used to. I might go with somebody like a Jameson Williams as my next wide receiver, somebody that's not going to catch as many balls, but everything is a deep threat. Everything's a big play. That might be a philosophy. That's where I would keep it balanced, though, where I won't have 2 of those deep threat guys like Jameson Williams. I won't draft 2 of them, and I won't get too much volume guys. But having a little bit of both, I think, is okay.
Do you have a player? I'll do it on both sides of the coin here. Do you have a player or 2 right now that you go, wait a minute, I think this players are going to significantly outperform their current ADP? And I know it's early, and we haven't had the draft, and there's still some follow-up. But is there a player or 2 that you go, wait a minute, this is somebody I'm kind of looking at?
Yeah, it's funny to say Matthew Stafford in redraft, he's not going away, folks, and he's going like as 15th, 16th quarterback off the board. Finishes QB4 last year. Like he might be old, but he's still slinging the ball just as good as he was before. He's got 2 incredible wide receivers, maybe 3 after this week. Boy, this is going to come out after the draft. Okay, I'm going to call it now. Jordan Tyson to the Rams. It's happening.
Oh, I'm an ASU boy. I'm an ASU boy. So
there you go.
I love Tyson. My only concern about Tyson, and it's already been talked about, is kind of his injury history, and that's a big deal. So, and speaking of Stafford, I heard this morning on the fantasy show on Sirius, I listen to that show all the time, that Stafford and the Rams are talking about an extension. So he might be 38 years old, but I think he's going to stay around for a while.
In Dynasty, I understand like not letting him go to as the 14th or 15th quarterback. I get that. But in redraft, he's a top 10 quarterback for me still. Last year, I was beating the drum for Trevor Lawrence with all the things that I'd seen Liam Cohen do in Tampa Bay. And Trevor Lawrence going QB 21, QB 20 in drafts, finishes like the QB 2. So, yeah, every year we see quarterbacks that finish as top 10 quarterbacks that are drafted as QB 15 or later. I'm always looking for those guys because that's value I can get in a draft.
Hey, on the flip side, you got anybody in mind that you said, wait a minute, I'm not really going to be a little bit more cautious on this heading into drafts?
I'm not going to say Derrick Henry because I'm going to stop predicting when he's going to fall off a cliff because this is never going to happen.
I've been doing that for 3 years and it's burned me every time.
I've done some best ball drafts and there's nothing that I've seen that's like truly egregious. I want to kind of, actually there's one, Kenneth Walker. I'm not sold.
My producer is a big Seahawks fan, so.
Well, no, here's the thing is I liked him in Seattle, but when he goes to Kansas City, Andy Reid the last 10 years, he's not given really a huge lion's share to a running back outside of that one big CEH year. I am worried that Kenneth Walker is going to come in and just going to get like 60% of the work there in Kansas City. And I've seen him go as high as like the end of the first round at that 1-2 turn. And like, that's just way too soon for me. And now we're hearing Kansas City might want to trade up to get Jeremiah Love. If that happens, like,
oh my God, I've heard that. And I've had a hard time believing that would actually happen, but you never know.
It's not really Walker more. It's the situation in Kansas City.
Like, well, and I think if you, and you know this better than anybody, when you really look at the draft and what happens this weekend, players will either jump or they'll drop depending on where they go in the situation. Yeah. Not only that, not just the rookies, but current players on the roster could be impacted by a rookie potentially taking volume from their job. So again, that's we'll know that all way too soon here, I'm sure. One thing I was going to ask you, and this is something that I've seen. You've talked about best ball, you talked about season-long leagues, and now you got DFS, and that's always they're blending more than ever. I mean, they are. Sometimes everybody's doing them all. Is there any strategy that's impacting players who do both of those things, whether it's DFS, season-long? Like I do season-long best ball. I don't do a lot of DFS. And my best ball does impact my season-long a little bit because it kind of gives me a little bit of who's going where and when. But is there anything that you see out there?
I don't know if this directly answers your question, but I like to relate best ball to the way that I'm drafting and redraft, and not necessarily dynasty, but more for redraft, where you get into these mock drafts. And listen, we mock draft to kind of practice what's going to happen down the board on these drafts. And a lot of times you get in these mock draft rooms, shout out Yahoo. They have a great mock draft room. Sleeper has a good one, public ones. You can hop in. And then after round 2 or 3, people hop out. I have found best ball to be a pretty good predictor of how people are going to draft in a real draft. So I'll go enter a $1 best ball draft. Yeah, I'll pay $1 to mock draft in my mind, but I'm getting a real feel of where players are going. I'm watching trends that way. And at the end of the year, I get to say, did any of those mock drafts I did any of them work out? Because we've all been in that situation where we finish a mock draft and we're like, man, I just love this team. Wouldn't it be great at the end of the year if you get rewarded for that? And to find out you're actually wrong about them all. That's the best.
I mean, I exactly use best ball in that manner, is that it's a precursor for what I'm going to do in my season long or other drafts that I do, because it kind of gives me an idea of what people are thinking. And
I don't stack as much though. Like that's the only thing I don't take from best ball to bring over to redraft, the whole stacking thing.
Yeah, yeah, exactly right. That's good. Good point. Excellent point. But it does give you a little bit of sense of where people are valued in certain rounds and things like that. Absolutely. So I mean, I probably do 50 best balls before I start a draft. I mean, I probably do about 50. I mean, it's great. I love it. Like you said, it's only $1. You just go play it. It's great. So, I'm going to kind of look forward a little bit, if you don't mind. Fantasy football industry is going in the next 2 years, 2 to 3 years. Tell me what you think some of the trends are, and how is Football Guys positioning itself for that future? And I think the one thing we can all talk about here is prediction market, and that's going to get talked about for probably several more months and probably another year. But is there anything in this industry, how you see it going in the next 2 or 3 years?
Yeah, I want to write two little notes here because I want to make sure I hit on them both. But on the prediction markets and betting, that's something Football Guys is kind of shying away from. We've always kind of been like a friend of the home league, more just about fantasy football. So you're going to see us definitely continue leaning in that direction. I don't foresee us really dipping into prediction markets or betting too much. Now we do, talk about, our DFS content. You could definitely apply to that.
Sure.
You can use some more tools to apply to it, but we don't really directly talk about it that often. We're much more focused on your home league, the experience, the community that we're building through fantasy football. And I think that is the way a lot of companies are really scared about AI and because I'll just talk about it, like what AI is doing. I think there are great uses for AI. I use AI myself. Every week I have to write trivia, and that really helps me, get a great start on writing the trivia to give me some ideas to some different avenues I can go down. But I'm still writing all the trivia questions because I want them to have that unique feel to it, that home feel to it. Of like, you're sitting in a trivia room with your friends, and I apply that to fantasy football as well. With all the things we do, we're going to have our tools up, and we're going to have all of our articles written and our analysis, but we're also going to have community events where we're going out and seeing people, we're drafting with people, we're hosting drafts. So I think Football Guys and myself is just going to lean even more into the community aspect of fantasy football going into the future. I think that's the direction. I think that's the right way to go. AI is here, and it's here to help us, but it shouldn't define us. I think that's a safe thing to say.
It's funny because when I was leaving the FSGA in Vegas, going to my gate, ran into Joe. We were talking about that a little bit. And you guys are very true to your brand, and that is that do what you do well and continue to do it well. And that's why I think prediction market, I think there's still going to be a lot of fallout from that. I think AI is here to stay, and how you use it and the efficiency behind it is great. So I agree. I think technology will continue to improve this game and how you influence this game. So I think it's great. So we're gonna wrap this up. But before I wrap this, before we wrap this up though, I asked this question of every guest, and I suspect you have a whole list based on what's behind you. Give me your favorite sports movie. You probably knew this was coming, didn't you?
I did. My favorite sports movie. My favorite sports movie is not a football movie though. It's Bull Durham. It is for me. Baseball is another love of mine. When I was younger, I love minor league baseball. I like when there's only 100 people in the stands. Like I don't know, the home feel to baseball, I guess. But yeah, Bull Durham. Great one-liners. Quoted that I can't say on this show. I might be able to say it on this show.
Yes, you can.
We're dealing with a lot of shit. Sorry, Joe. It is said in my house quite often, like when we're just a little stressed out. Bull Durham is hands down my favorite sports movie.
Well, there's so many good ones out there, and it's funny because we have not had a duplicate yet. I've asked this question, and we have not had a duplicate. I suspect we're going to get one at some point, but we haven't had a duplicate. So, hey, Joey, this is...
Sorry. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, and this is not important, but like top 5 for me, like
I want to hear your top 5.
No. I'm saying in movies in general, crushes in a movie. Annie Savoy, Susan Sarandon's character in Bull Durham, like top 5 crush for me.
Oh,
yeah, it's a unique one. Nobody would say that really.
I'm a big baseball guy as well, and my favorite one is Moneyball, just because I just love that. I remember that story so well. And it just resonated with me. And Brad Pitt was great. I mean, he was so good in that movie. And so, again, some classic stuff going on there. Hey, Joey, this is awesome. I really, really, really appreciate you coming on, sharing your perspectives. I think you always provide full transparency, insights they're unique to our listeners and to your listeners. And you are a true credit to this industry, my friend. And it's a pleasure to know you. It's a pleasure to call you my friend. and tell listeners how they can get a hold of you.
So I'm going to use I try to do this as much as I can. I'm going to use my platform to shout somebody else out, but you can find me on social media at the Joey Wright, and anything I do is at Football Guys. Okay. Trivia on Tuesday nights. Yeah. Jeff Blaylock doing a lot of great work over at Football Guys, dynasty work. Anything and everything Jeff Blaylock can do, he's doing at Football Guys. Go check out his work. He's doing some good stuff.
Yeah. And I would say that, make sure you check out Joey's work too over at Football Guys and all the things that he's doing. Because if you're going to be serious about your game, that's a must that you have to subscribe to Football Guys. That's my plug right now. I'm telling you, it's my favorite go-to source. You know that.
I greatly appreciate that.
Joey, again, it's a pure pleasure to be with you today. Enjoyed the chopping it up with you. We'll do it again. You have an open invitation. It's a lot of fun. And
Don't say that. I'm going to come make myself the second chair on this show.
You know what? The best thing about this is you wore a hoodie in my honor.
Well, I knew what I play into my audience, Scott. It's not unintentional.
All right. Joey Wright, thank you very much. And as always, if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, share it, and stay locked in with us here at Under the Hoodie. Joey Wright, thank you. We'll catch you guys next time.